wants to enjoy his retirement sailing with his family on a cruise around Scotland. He's not the only one making like Popeye, in case we were worried while we were playing that, Game of Thrones star and former Porridge Oats man actor Rory McCann has said in a recent interview he lives on a boat most of the time, but he sails around our fair country. Today we celebrate sailing in Scotland with our beginner's guide on how to get started and the do's and don'ts of taking to the water. Chief Operating Officer for the Royal Yachting Association Scotland, James Stewart's going to fill us in. Hello, James.
Good morning.
Did you have posters on your wall? Was it of boats?
Yeah, I had a few of boats, but I've actually, I must confess, I had a poster of Calman as well, actually.
Well,
yeah, who didn't? Well, I didn't.
Who didn't? Quite a lot of people actually can this thing. So you had a wee yacht and then a wee Kylie Minogue. That's a nice broad spectrum. Now, I'm a complete novice, James, this may surprise you. I've only ever been on an inflatable dinghy off Blackwater Foot in Arran. That's all I've been on. So, if people are interested in it, what kind of things do you need to consider before you start? If you think, I really would quite like to get into boating, what's the easiest way?
Well, you've asked a few questions
I
there,
did.
I guess. Yes.
Answer all of them immediately, James.
Well, right, I'll work my way through. I think the first thing is wherever you go or however you want to get involved, you need to do it in a way which means that it's safe. And that sounds all very sort of parental, I guess, but there are some risks out there, and actually if you go through a club or if you go to a training centre or you go with experienced friends, then you're just making sure your first experience is going to be a good one, and there's stacks of ways to do that. So I think that's, for me, would be the overarching bit. And then, you know, where's a good place to start? Well, where's local? I guess there's so many different options around Scotland, whether it's on a canal, whether it's on a loch, whether it's actually out at sea. You know, there's a stack of options, and it depends what you want to do. Do you want to go for your rubber dinghy as you were describing? Is it a powerboat experience? Is it sailing? Is it, you know, yachts? Whatever. There's so much variety, I guess.
And I take it, again, not knowing a lot, that every single different type, you're talking there about powerboating or yachting, are very, very different in terms of the, not the experience, but the qualifications that you need and the safety and the difficulty?
Yes and no, and why I say that is there's some common themes. There's a huge amount of common sense really just out there. If you know, you wouldn't run around in the middle of a road, so why would you run around in the middle of a channel where there's big boats going? It's common sense in that sense. So the vast majority of what it is underpinned by that. And then of course there's some specifics about different types of boats have ever so slightly different things you need to keep an eye out for. Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to put it.
Now, we have on the line at the moment a proper sailor, I'm going to use that term, Ewan Kennedy, who's on his boat right now. Hi, Ewan.
Hello, Susan, can you hear me all right?
I can, yes. Where are you just now, Ewan?
Well, I've gone about a mile offshore to get a good signal on the mobile.
Right.
And I'm on a sea loch south of Oban on the west coast.
Beautiful.
And it's lovely. Well, it's not an absolutely beautiful day, but I think it's going to brighten up later. Quite a nice breeze, and at the moment I'm not having to do too much the boat sailing herself, so I think we can have a wee chat.
What kind of boat have you got, just so we know?
Well, what I'm sailing just now is a little 16-foot boat. We'd call it a day sailor. It's ideal for one person to take out, and it's a sort of glorified dinghy. It's ideal for these inshore waters when you just go out for an hour or two, and it's absolutely terrific. I wouldn't take this one very far offshore, but it's just lovely for one person to go out and have a sail on.
And that's a good area for wildlife, isn't it?
Well, it's terrific. I mean, I was out on Monday, quite calm, sunny day on Monday, way down the loch, and I heard this breathing beside the boat, and I looked over and it was a wee dolphin.
Oh, wow.
Come up to have a look at the boat, and of course, if you don't have an engine, they get very curious to think you're another sea creature, which in a funny sort of way you are. And I didn't see him for very long, or see her for very long. She just made a few of these beautiful dives that they do and then went off.
Fantastic.
See all sorts of wildlife out here.
Now, James, we're talking about Alex Ferguson wanting to, you know, sail and cruise around Scotland, and it sounds beautiful to do that. But is it like flying in that you have to tell someone that you're doing it? Is it something that requires quite a lot of forward planning if you're thinking about taking a big trip like that?
Yeah, I'd say it's not as prescriptive in that sense, but it's just what you would, if you're setting off, you want to let somebody know. So if things were to go wrong, then somebody would know it's gone wrong, so they could look after you. And there's all sorts of ways of achieving that. And the Coast Guard offer a useful service in that sense that you can log what you're up to. But actually, if you're just going out for a day sail, it's about letting colleagues or friends or the club that you're sailing from know what's going on. So you do need to think a wee bit before you go out. You don't want to just go out without that thought process or letting somebody know what's going on, or indeed just go out with other friends and other people in other boats.
And I'll ask you this in a second, Ewan, but James, what do you think the best thing is about the Scottish waters? Why should people take up sailing?
Oh, well, there's lots, but I think that what Scotland has to offer the world, I guess, and this is the year of natural Scotland, it's what better time to talk about it. It's the quality of that, the wildlife, the outdoor, that experience of the vistas, the seascapes. It's jaw-dropping. It's genuinely stunning and world class. There are surveys all over the world which draw attention to that. So it's just beautiful.
And Ewan, you obviously enjoy sailing.
Yes, I think what James has just said, I would just agree with entirely. What I would say is that you get a completely different dimension on everything out here. The landscape looks completely different, and I would say that if you're just visiting a place, you're a kind of spectator, but if you're actually on the water, you really feel you're part of the scenery, you're part of the landscape, you're really immersed in it, and the scenery here is just absolutely breathtaking, and the wildlife is fantastic. So that's the main thing I think we've got going, and the pattern of islands that we have here are just lovely to visit.
How long have you been sailing for, Ewan?
Well, you talk about black water fruit. I was taken as a tiny wee boy to St Abbs on the east coast, and my mother used to park me off with one of the fishermen who took me out. And in those days, no one had heard of wearing life jackets or anything, so really it wouldn't be approved of nowadays. But
no.
We're taken out, and that got the sea into my blood. And then James was saying join a club. I went out to the old Clyde Cruising Club at Barderry Loch, north of Glasgow.
Yeah.
I used to cycle out after school because my dad wouldn't buy a boat, and that really annoyed me.
Yeah, I know what you feel like. I won't buy a boat either. Just, yeah.
Well, we'll get you out of the water, but the older kids taught the younger ones. And this morning I logged on and found they're still doing it. They've been doing it for 80 years.
Wow.
The only thing is now I think the kids have all got life jackets, and I think they've even got crash helmets, some of them. So it must be much more dangerous now than it used to be.
Now, James,
I got started very early on in my life.
Royal Yachting Association, Scotland, James, your website, has it got lots of information on it?
Yes, it does, yeah. So ourwayscotland.org.uk. I mean, there's a point that Ewan made there, which actually, sailing isn't expensive. It really doesn't need to be at all. I draw the comparison to some. If you take up football, unless very few people buy the football team to then get out and go to get involved. So why would you buy a yacht if you want? Why not join in
I've got nowhere
something else?
to park it for a start. Sailor Ewan Kennedy and James Stewart of the Royal Yachting Association, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Now it's almost time for the news. Karen's got the news anagram.